Hi, this is Roger, thanks for dropping by. Sunday chat today's a bit of all sorts. First thing, health stuff, don't need to do that anymore. All I will say is that the weight is still coming off. Lost another couple of pounds since I last checked. So we've come down from over 13 stone to around 12 now, which I think is pretty good. I'm aiming for 11, but that could take a long time. I've just noticed I've got a hoverfly in here, which I might have to try and let out because I'm not sure. It actually looks like it's feeding on a phalaenopsis at the moment, but I'll have to try and get that out. Not going to survive long in here, I doubt. But yeah, it's just going around a phalaenopsis at the moment. I'm not moving the camera, they're tiny. So yes, so that's going okay. I'm enjoying the types of food that I've sorted out for myself. Had something unusual yesterday. I had lamb's liver and beans. So yeah, keeping the veggies up and all that. And cutting the wine right down helps a lot, I'm sure. That I do miss. It's very tempting when I sort of pop out, you know, to have lunch outside sort of thing, a break from whatever I'm doing, and we haven't got the wine to go with it. We do still have some wine, but not nowhere near as much, which is good, I suppose. I've been told off, metaphorically speaking, about the plants in the garden. I did a video on the Gardening Channel and had a look round, you know, some of the plants and things in conjunction with talking about painting the shed, which is why I got my scruffy gear on. I've been putting another coat on the shed today, and I didn't get all I wanted to do done. I had to stop. My back was hurting and so was my shoulder. I think it's repetitive something strain or something or other. But yeah, I'm getting there. The side that faces us has now had, the bare wood had a coat, and then the whole side has had 2 coats. It might get a third because that's the bit we look at in the main, yeah? So it might get a third. And the difference between the bare wood and the stuff that already had colour on it is not as great. Now it's had that extra coat today. So yeah, it's looking a hell of a lot better than it was, let's put it that way. But yeah, I got a little bit of information, we'll call it, about the plants in the garden. I was saying that there's quite a few of them haven't performed as well as I expected, and you know, it was a discussion really on feed, and I've been putting the, I got some slow release pellets, granules, whatever you want to call them, that have actually got a fast release mixed in with them. So when you apply it, you give the plant a boost immediately over the first couple of weeks, and then it reverts to the slow release. I thought this was going to be brilliant. You know, it lasts 5 or 6 weeks, so you haven't got to keep doing it all through the year and everything. And basically I was told that that might be fine for the first year, that something's in a pot when it's got fresh compost and it hasn't filled the pot with roots yet. That might be okay. But when you've got plants that have been in pots quite a long time and they need an absolute soaking, which I've been doing with the hose, thinking that would wash down enough food, apparently that is nowhere near enough food for established plants in tubs. So what I did today, literally for the first time, literally it's just so easy to go around with the hose. It takes me 10 minutes, less than 10 minutes, to do all the bonsai, all the tubs, and if necessary the gravel beds, if they're looking a bit dry, which they're not at the moment. And the problem is, I switched to the watering can. I've got, it's not liquid feed, but it is, it's powder form, small granules that you mix in with the water and it dissolves, so it ends up being a liquid feed. And it's potentially reasonably strong as well. So all of the tubs in the garden had that. The problem is, I'd still have to get the hose out to do the bonsai, because they get granular feed as well. They don't need much feed. They're not, they're not growing to the extent that the plants in the garden are. But yeah, apparently if I'm expecting plants to do well and bloom their heads off and produce fragrance and nectar for the bees and the butterflies and everything, they need feed. Regular, good feed. So we will start doing that, and hopefully they'll pick up before the end of this year. And then next year I'll know better, won't I? Yeah, so yeah, that's fair enough. I didn't know. I thought the granules that I was using, pellets that I was using, would be enough, and obviously it's not. It's me blaming the plants. Well, all the time it was me. Still, as I said, the type of gardening I've done in the past didn't involve things planted in tubs. It involves things planted in the ground. And I can safely say, over my 50 odd years of looking after gardens, I don't think I've ever fed anything in the ground. They just leave them to get on with it, and they seem to have done fine. But obviously here is a different thing. I've got gravel beds. I haven't had to deal with that sort of thing before. And also I've got, some fairly large plants planted in containers, in tubs. So different thing altogether. Yeah, so that's that. What else? In here, I am going to switch to the Orchids rain mix at my next opportunity. The MSU feed that I've still got a reasonable amount left, but it's changing colour. I don't think it's getting damp, because if it was getting damp, it would, it would dissolve and turn into like a gel, I suspect. So I am keeping it dry, but yeah, it's not looking right, and it's old. I think I've had that about 3-4 years, and there may be some degrading going on where it's not actually performing as well as it should. So the Orchids rain mix is sold by Orchid Accessories, Peter White, and he'll be coming to a show, not soon, so I will be able to get some without paying the postage. I shall only get a small container. I'd rather get a small amount and replace it relatively frequently than get a large amount and have it go off. So I'll be changing my feed. The content, the makeup of the Orchids rain mix is very, very similar and was based on the MSU. The difference is that it contains a measured amount of sulphur, so it actually specifies a percentage of sulphur, whereas the sulphur in the MSU is implied. It's the types of things that are used to make up the various elements that it defines have sulphate. So there is some sulphur in MSU, but it's not mentioned, whereas with Orchids it is. And they have a much higher element of carbon, not carbon, calcium, carbon. That's because I've been looking at flipping cars on YouTube, not to buy. Yeah, so there's a much higher percentage of calcium, which when I was chatting in the comments with Rick, he seemed to think that would probably be better for my orchids, actually, the Orchids rain mix. So we'll be changing the feed at my first opportunity to get some without paying extortionate prices for shipping when I'm actually going to see the man. So we'll have that. The Cymbidiums outside have been moved into a position now where they get more sun, and they do actually get direct sun, not midday sun, it's later in the day. It starts about 2 o'clock, but moving them into the late afternoon sun, unfortunately, as the sun gets lower in the sky, it's only on them for about an hour, and it's hardly going to do any good. So I've moved them farther out, and they get the sun earlier now. They are acclimatised, they have been getting some sun, and I don't think they're going to burn, I think they're okay, and I keep my eye on them. you know. So if I see any of the high leaves, the ones that would get the sun first, starting to get tinges or anything on them, then I'll move them and they'll get less. But they're out there hopefully starting to think about generating those embryo spikes inside the bulbs, which is what the sun and everything is all about, the extra light. And we are starting to get cooler nights. We've had a couple of nights now where it's gone down to about 12 degrees. You know, so that's quite cool when the daytime is 21, 22 today. At the moment, when the sun comes out, it'll go up a bit. If the sun comes out. There's some blue sky out there, but there's also a large amount of large clouds going over, so there's more clouds than blue. Certainly not a clear sky by any means. But we haven't reached the end of August yet. It's not autumn or anything, we are still in what I would call high summer. But the days are slowly but surely getting shorter. The plants probably notice it more than I do. So this geranium, pelargonium, whatever you want to call it, has got some slug or snail trails on some of the leaves. So there is one in here somewhere, but I've yet to find it. I'll get it eventually. Mojo's out in the garden, flaked out, doing his lazy thing. That's what cats do. Yeah, if you want a load of energy, bursting with energy and chasing balls and running around like a Looney Tune, then you get a dog. If you want cool, it's cool, then you get a cat. If you want bust-ups, then you get both. Although some people seem to manage dogs and cats in the same household and they get on fine. Not all do. Some cats just won't take to dogs. They just won't have it. It's in the breeding, I think. Anyway, that's that. Not much to change out here. I keep looking at this and I keep thinking, you know, every time I water the Cymbidiums, I think, yeah, and you lot have got to come back in. And they've got to have a home when they come back in. And we've got two things. When they come back in, they've got to go somewhere, yes, but then they will probably have to have a second home when they start pushing up spikes, because at that point they will need height above them. And I doubt if I've got any shelves apart from top shelves that will work. Now I'm hoping that the Deesers will have completely finished blooming by then, all the blooms will be gone and the spikes will have died back. That way the Deesers can go on in a different place, and I get my two black tables back for Cymbidiums in spike, so that they've got the height and a nice view of them, of course. So, but yeah, we might have to shuffle a few things round off of some top shelves when the Cymbidiums start to spike. You notice I said when, not if. I'm reasonably confident my Cymbidiums are going to bloom. And I'd like to relatively safely say all of them. They're all large enough, even the one that got unintentionally divided, that is still large enough. It pushed up two new growths on top of what it already had. I think that should produce at least one spike, maybe two. But that's the smallest of the plants. My little miniature Cymbidium, in fact, in a minute we'll go out and have a look. I'll take the camera off the stand and we'll do that for the end of the Sunday chat. We'll go and have a look at the Cymbidiums. Will we? Well, it depends how much noise is outside. The people up in that flat have been making a hell of a racket this morning. You've got one of them up in the flat, leaning out the window, having a shouty conversation with one down in the garden. This is at 9 o'clock on a Sunday morning, you know. And it's funny actually, I actually laughed out loud. Yesterday morning, it's all about getting your own back. Yesterday morning, somebody was doing some work with quite a loud piece of machinery, and they started at 8:15 in the morning. noisy people up in the flat were up there slamming the windows, bang, bang. They'd obviously got woken up, hadn't they? Well, that's what they do. You know, they make lots of noise at often unearthly times. They don't like it when it's shoes on the other foot or whatever you call it. But yeah, they were making their annoyance shown by slamming windows shut, because they normally have their windows open. That's why they make so much noise. Their windows are open. That will change as it comes towards winter. And they'll be muffled then because the windows will be shut for obvious reasons. Keep the heat in. Boiler man fixed the boiler, that's all done. And I got my car serviced. That was something that became very noticeable. When the guy took it for his MOT and he gave it back to me, he said, your car's not pulling properly, it should be better than that. With the engine you've got, you know, that car should go better than it's going at the moment. If you bring it in for a service, because it hasn't had one since I've got it, then I'll do the filter changes, change the oil and everything, and I'll give it a good look over. And, you know, we'll give it a complete check over, basically. So he did that, and did the service, and I got a printed sheet of everything that's wrong with it. And these are things that they're all classed as wear and tear, and a lot of it is directly due to the state of our roads. Now, I'm not going to get started on this, but our roads are becoming a joke, quite honestly, given that the amount of money we pay in road tax to the government to actually maintain our road systems, and they just don't. It's another pot of money that just seems to disappear. But anyway, potholes in this country are just a joke. I'm sure people that come from other countries, you know, they sort of think, you know, that these are supposed to be main roads, not dirt tracks going to a farm where you might expect a few potholes. Anyway, I've got cracked springs, leaking shock absorbers. The rear number plate is becoming obscure. That's an offence because of the camera recognition software and everything. Must be able to read your number plate clearly and all that, to check if you're speeding, and well, to actually issue the fine if they catch you speeding, more like. So that needs doing. There was a couple of other minor bits and pieces, but it's going to be relatively expensive, because I've known for some time that the discs and pads need doing. So what he suggested is to get it in and get the front end done. So that'll be new springs, new shock absorbers, new bushes, and get the discs and the pads done. So it's effectively like the front end. And he said, if we get this list done, then there's nothing wrong with your car. It's all done. There's no niggles, no outstandings. We'll have done the lot. So I can't do it now because I can't afford it. I've got my rent at the end of this month. But maybe next month we'll have a look, because he did say it was going to cost quite a bit. But you know, car parts nowadays, the price of those has gone through the roof because of the manufacturing. You know, people often, you know, don't necessarily own warehouses, they rent them. Well, that will have gone up, won't it? Staff, wages have all gone up, materials have all gone up, transport's all gone up, so parts have gone up. And the people who work on the cars to do the repairs, their prices have gone up. So, you know, that's how it is. It's no good saying inflation's dropped back down again. That don't stop the increase in the prices that's already happened. They're not going to suddenly start reducing them, are they? That will never happen. So, yeah, I've got some more car stuff to do. But then I've had that car, I think that MOT might have been the fourth one. It might have only been the third one. But I've had the car some time and I haven't had to spend any money on it. I've managed to get through MOTs and everything. I mean, I put a new set of tyres on because they were starting to fail, so that's already been done. That came out of last month's money. So I think it's time to get the car fixed up and get it back right again. And then hopefully it will last a nice long time without anything major going wrong. I mean, these Volvos are built to last, so that's why I chose it. So hopefully that will be true. what else is going on? Not much really. I haven't got any more new blooms to show you. Actually I have. I've got one. The hibiki has opened. I'll get that out. We'll have a quick look at that, because a lot of people might not have seen one in bloom and have only heard me talk about it, but it does have buds on, and a couple of them have just opened recently. They're not open fully though, so you still can't see them properly, but yeah, they are a lovely pink colour, quite a strong pink, and unusually with pink there's a bright orange centre. Now these haven't opened, they do open a lot more than that, and there's more to come and some down here, but it's a good plant. This one just seems to want to grow, and it's doing it. You know, practically every one of these new growths is still actively growing, and they're all getting up to a reasonable size as well. So it should continue to grow through this season, and then it will probably rest through the winter. It may produce some more buds, but it tends to bloom on older leafless canes in the main. If you look at this one, you'd say, oh well, that's bloomed on a leaved cane, but this is a strange cane. It is an old cane, but it's got two kikis, and two of its leaves haven't dropped yet. So it's a strange cane, to say the least. These buds are doing what it says, you know, old leafless canes. The problem I've got is that I haven't got many old leafless canes. I've got hardly any at all. So I'm not going to have a mass blooming on this until this set of growths here become the old growths and start dropping leaves. And that's a long time. That's a long way away, that is. Alright, so that's that. As I said, there's no other new blooms to look at. There really isn't much else going on. Well, last time I watered the plants, apart from one, I broke off all the kikis on the dendrobiums. They got dumped because they were all small, they didn't have open leaves. If you're going to grow kikis, then you need to leave them on the plant until they've got roots and open leaves, and then they'll, you know, much better chance of them being successful and growing on quite quickly. So that's the way to handle them. But I just wanted them off. Just seemed to have had a bit of an influx of kikis on the dendrobiums. And do you know what? I've just noticed a spike on my only Phalaenopsis type dendrobium. Now that bloomed not that long ago, and that spike crept up on me as well. This one has. I never noticed that spike when I watered it, and it's 4 inches long. It'll only have a couple of buds on it. It won't be magnificent, and they're not even spectacular blooms on that one. Not quite sure why I keep it really, but it grows well, you know. So that's that. Right. That'll do for chatty things. I've got no shows or anything coming up, no places to go, people to see or anything like that. I have got to do an update on our Orchid Society's website. It's not an error, it's just something that hasn't been updated. It was left as you know, to be notified, you know, and it hasn't been updated, even though we now know what data needs to go in that bit. So I've got an update to do there. We've got to try and let this little hover fly out if we can. I don't quite know how I'm going to do that. I open the door and try and guide it, you know, put my hand in front of it and make it move away from my hand. In fact, it's coming to the door now. Let's see if I can get it to go out. Come on, out, not back in, you silly thing. Well, he nearly went out and then came back in again. No, he's determined to stay in for now, so be it. Another time. Yes, so I'll get the camera off and we'll go and have a look around the Cymbidiums. I don't think there will be any spikes yet. I'd be highly surprised if there is. But we can have a look at how the growths are coming on. They get rained on, obviously, so they get flushed naturally with rainwater. So when I water them, I always feed. I never flush them because they get rain to do that. Much more natural, get flushed out with, you know, rain when we get some. And we're due some Monday night into Tuesday, I think, which is handy because I've got this funeral on Tuesday. And it's at a crematorium, which means I can drive there and there will be somewhere to park and won't have too far to walk to get inside a building. That bit's okay. But the afters, you know, the munchies and things and the chats and all that are not too far away, but they're in an alleyway off a high street. There's nowhere to park. So I'm going to have to find a parking space down some side road somewhere or other where it's not limited and walk, which is not going to be funny in the rain. Not when you've got your besties on, you know. I won't be going like this, obviously. Well, maybe it's not obvious. Yeah, so we'll have a look around the Cymbidiums. So I'll shut down and then we'll come back on outside. Right, so this is where the Cymbidiums live now. I've had to move my Shoujo bonsai a little bit farther out so that this can go farther up here. Otherwise it was just a couple in the sun and a couple not. And the sun comes round early enough now that the lower shelf is actually getting some sun as well. I'll move this up here a bit so that we can get in round behind as well as in front. In fact, we can start behind. Starting behind in case we've got any spikes lurking that I can't see from the front. So this one here is that Cymbidium copper, one of two, because the plant did actually split and did, to all intents and purposes, originally look like two different plants. Now the new growths on here are pushing on nicely. Yeah, they haven't formed their bulb. Well, they're forming their bulb here. So this one's got a bulb coming quite nicely, and then this one round here is a bit farther behind, and this one round here. So we've got three new growths on here at the moment. In theory, they could all spike, but we'll have to wait and see. So that one's doing fine, and then this one here, we'll find out what it is when I go around the other side. The new growths on this one are plentiful. I think that's the expression I'll use. There are quite a few, and they're starting to mature. They've got their leaves open, and so I'm just trying to get that flipping cobweb off. Done it. But they haven't formed their bulbs yet. They're still working on them, but you know, there's lots of them. This is new growth, new growth. New growth in behind there, another one here, another one here, and then if we go around the back we'll find out what it is as well. Oh, it's down the side. This one is, oh, it's the bronzy coloured hybrid. No name on this one then, so but I still put a tag on it. Again, more new growths around here. They're at different stages, but no sign of any spikes yet. So that's that one. And then this one, new growths on here, here. Oh, we've got a bent leaf, probably happened in the wind. But yeah, we've got new growth here, another one here, and there's some around the other side of the plant as well. There's another one here, so again, quite a few new growths. No sign of spikes yet. I mean, it's wishful thinking there might be spikes this time of year. It's unlikely, but yeah, that one's doing okay. And the view around the other side, not so many new growths around this side of the plant. They tend to be around the other side on this one. So, and that one is, that's Jamie Red, that one. So that one has got an ID. So that's that one, and then the big one on the end, this has got new growths at various stages and quite a few of them, and it started out as quite a large plant in the first place. This is the one that has the lovely yellow blooms, and it had a lot of spikes when I got it. I think this came from Burnham's, but yeah, we got spikes at different stages. We've got one here, several in the middle of the plant here. Absolute massive roots on this one. I'm going to look round the back. Oof. Look round the side first. Yeah, plenty of new growths, some of which are maturing. Yeah, so this one's starting to form its bulb. Dead leaf. It's very rare I have any dead leaves on the Cymbidiums. Another new growth here. So plenty of new growths. We should be okay with that. Then the ones on the lower shelf are not wired on, so we can turn those round and have a look at those. This one has an incorrect label. It says Cymbidium hybrid cream. This in fact is the other copper. This was the small piece that separated. It's got 2 strong bulbs and 2 strong new growths that really are pushing on. So I can pick these up. They're light, so they need a water tomorrow, not today. Have some fun when we bring these in. They're covered in cobwebs, which means there's spiders. I don't really want to take them inside. But yeah, 2 strong new growths, not formed their bulbs yet, plenty of time, but 2 bulbs and 2 growths, both progressing really well. My little miniature one, got the original plant that was in bloom when I've got it. This was my bulb that I grew, that bloomed, and it now has 2 new growths. One's coming off the bulb that I grew, and this one's coming off the previous bulb. So 2 new growths on there. I'm expecting 2 spikes on that. And then this is another big one, bit of a monster. This got an ID. Yeah, that's tiger tail. I would expect good things from this. It's a very mature plant, and it has new growths everywhere on here. Here, 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 here. There's almost too many to count. I'm expecting good things from this one. The blooms are very attractive, and it's doing well. All of the new growths are progressing. They're all doing well. They haven't formed their bulbs yet, and this is what we're looking to do. This is the idea of getting the extra light and keeping the feed going, is that as the bulbs form, the cooler nights and the extra light as we head into autumn is what triggers the new bulbs to actually produce the embryo spikes. This is before they emerge. This is inside the bulbs before they emerge. This is when the work gets done leading into autumn. And then obviously, autumn into winter, we should start seeing some spikes. And that'll be good. It's Hannah's one that lives under the table over there. And for all you orchid people that don't bother going over to the Gardening Channel, that's what the shed looks like now. It's coated up. It's still got more work to do, but it's looking a lot better. Nowhere near as tatty as it did. And once I get the new felt on the roof as well, that'll be a bonus. That's going to look. It'll be a nice corner when it's all finished. The plants go back where they're supposed to be, all that sort of stuff. Yes, so that's the Cymbidiums. This is where they live, in this corner. The idea of the wheels was so that they're movable. The staging, the whole lot is movable. But they hadn't been out here long, just a day or two, and several blew over from the top shelf, which is why they're all wired on. They're literally wired onto the top. But so far, even with some strong winds, the ones on the bottom shelf haven't blown over. So I've left them at the moment, but if necessary they can be wired onto the bottom shelf. So yeah, Cymbidiums, they seem to be doing well for me. We will wait and see what sort of blooming I get, but providing these bloom adequately, then I'm happy to grow Cymbidiums. I'm not going to have room for many more unless I find some more miniatures. I mean, it's a little bit deceiving, but I'll show you. This is a miniature. So is this. Oh no, it's not. It's much, much bigger. Is it? Put the tops of the plants together. They're both the same height. They've both got the same size leaves. Okay, that one is a bigger plant, but they are both miniatures. It's deceiving, isn't it? Because that's in a pot with a much lower top to it than this one. But I don't know. We either grow very large specimen plants, in which case I'm going to need some much bigger pots for next year when we get around to repotting. This has filled its pot. This has filled its pot. This has filled its pot with roots. There's probably still some room to produce some growths, but it's an absolute pot full of roots. It's pushing the plant out. This has filled its pot. That hasn't. So we will have to think about repotting at least some of them, and at which point we have to think, do we want to divide them? Are they getting too big for their boots? That's yet to be decided. I'm lucky because at the moment I've got very few old leafless bulbs. They're not there yet. I think we will get some after this winter. I think, you know, the oldest leaves that were there at the beginning of this year, in other words possibly produced the year before or even earlier, may drop, and then we'll have some bare bulbs, you know, with no leaves. They're still full of food. They still support the plant, but if you get to the stage where there's more of those types of bulbs than bulbs with actual leaves on, the plant's out of balance then, and it'll start to deteriorate. It won't be doing as well, it won't grow as well, and it certainly won't bloom as well. So that's the time when you need to get those bulbs off. So we'll be looking at that. But apart from that, growing them outside like this, it's just a matter of keeping up with the watering and the feed. As I said, I don't flush them, the rain does that. It makes it difficult if we get a long period of rain because they're soaking wet, which means I can't feed them because I'd be adding even more water into the pots. You know, we could get some root rot if they stay wet too long. But the media is quite airy, you know, it's based on bark, so I think they're doing okay. Right, so that's it for this Sunday, and I'll see you next time. Thanks for dropping by. Lazy lump. Still, he enjoys being out here and having a snooze and whatever, you know. He does a lot of sleeping now.